have watched this couple get attracted to one another, date one another, court one another, and get married. And what comes tonight is their honeymoon night. And as you read chapter 4, you are going to see this couple consummate or complete, it's another word for it, complete their marriage by having sex. And let me just say this, marriage is completed when the married couple consummates their marriage by having sex. And I want to make something very clear tonight, okay? When I was, look here at me, when I was in, I think I was either a junior or senior at GCA, we had a special 3-day chapel service that we had. And a pastor that actually his church is right over here off of Barnes Bridge and Centerville. He came and spoke, and the title of his 3 days was Sex is Good. And he would make us say that. He would be like, and sex is what? And we'd all have to go, sex is good. Now you got to remember, it may not be that big of a deal that GCA is doing this now, but this was back in 1997. Very big deal that he did this. And it was very, very, it was very memorable for me because having open conversations about sex and how God says to do sex is not something that the church does very well. And tonight, I'm not going to give you everything that is in chapter 4, but I want to make a few things very clear. Sex is good. God invented it. It's not crude, embarrassing, or inappropriate. Sex is good. God invented it. It is not crude. It is not inappropriate. It is not embarrassing. Now, here's what Satan does. Satan, one of his greatest tricks, number one is he's a deceiver. Number two is he is a counterfeiter. He takes, I don't know if that's the right word, but if that's a real word, but he takes the real stuff that God makes and he pollutes it and he twists it and he corrupts it and he makes a counterfeit and then he gives it back to human beings as if it's good. So what Satan has done is he has taken sex, which is good, which is God invented, which is God sanctioned, and he has taken it, he's twisted it, he's corrupted it, he's polluted it, and then he gives it back to human beings and tells them it's still good. This is what he's done with sex. He has polluted it. But sex, as God intends it, is good. And inside of marriage, it is not only sanctioned by God, but it is required and rejoiced in. Sex is required and rejoiced in by God. I only have 3 points tonight. I almost did 6, but I decided to do 3 and keep some of the points just kind of sub-points underneath one big point. 3 reasons why sex is good as God has intended it. Chapter 4, verses 1 through 7, the first thing we're going to see is sex is vulnerable. When you wait until you get married to have sex, there is going to be great excitement. But do you know what else there's going to be? And Corey and Topanga don't really demonstrate this too much, but there's also going to be anxiety that comes with it. Now, you don't think, you're like, I've waited for sex my entire life. There's not going to be any anxiety. I'm not going to be nervous. I'm not going to. Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will. And this is because for the very first time, you are becoming vulnerable with somebody physically. If you have saved yourself for marriage, if you are doing it the way that God intends for it to be done, then the first time that you are going to be physically vulnerable with somebody else is going to be on your honeymoon night. Now, this should not come as a shock to any of us. I mean, in order for this couple to have sex, they are going to have to get naked in front of somebody else. That's not something that we do on any kind of regular basis. So getting vulnerable and becoming naked in front of someone is going to bring anxiety. It's going to bring some nervousness. It's going to bring some some vulnerability. Now, I want to let you know something about the culture in which we're reading about. The dress of women in this culture was not form-fitting at all, which means Solomon has no clue the form or shape of his wife's body at all. No man has ever seen the form or shape of her body at all. So it's not simply, hey, I'm gonna have to get vulnerable because I'm gonna have to get naked in front of my husband, or my husband's got to get naked in front of me. This is literally the first time that this woman's form or shape is gonna be observed. And in our text, Solomon understands that there is going to be nervousness and anxiety and vulnerability. He knows this is true for his beloved. And in verses 1 through 4, he is going to reassure her by romantically complimenting her. Now look at what he says in verse 1 of chapter 4. Behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. He says it twice. You're beautiful, my love. You're so beautiful. Your eyes are doves behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of shorn ewes that have come up from their washing. She has clean teeth. And then she says, all bear twins. She has all her teeth, and not one among them is lost. It's young. She's got all her teeth. They're clean. Okay? That's hygiene, young men. Hygiene. Oh, I'm at youth camp with you. Your lips are like a scarlet thread, and your mouth is lovely. Your cheeks are like halves of a pomegranate behind your veil. Your neck is a tower of David built in rows of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. Notice, he doesn't start by commenting about her sexually. He doesn't go, babe, I love your butt. Just want you to know that. It's not what he does. This is important. Listen, this is important. He begins by romantically, and actually, before ever touching her body, he touches her soul. By the way that he compliments her. He compliments her eyes, her hair, her teeth, her lips, her neck. He's not just going after the body. He's not just simply saying, well, this is my body now. I mean, God said that we're supposed to consummate our marriage. This is my body. No. He understands that the way to love her is to love her as an image bearer of God. Do you know what sex is in our culture? It's just about being physical and having a sexual appetite and sexual appetites met. We do not see each other as image bearers of God to be loved through sex in a covenant. That's not how we view it in our culture. But that's the way that God views it. That's the way they understand it. And he's going to be gentle. Is he going to take pleasure in his wife? Of course. But he's going to be gentle in taking pleasure with her. In verse 5, he continues. This time he compliments her breast. And notice he calls them 2 fawns that graze among the lilies. Now it's funny that he's calling breast fawns. But this is what is important to notice. Again, his tenderness and gentleness. He says they are like grazing in the lilies. This is peaceful and calm. He's making her feel safe and secure, even in sexual pleasure. They are passionate and they want to be with each other, but it's pure and it's beautiful and they're going to be together all night. Look at what he says. He says in verse 6, until the day breathes and the shadows flee. We are going to be together and we are going to be safe with each other and we're going to be calm and secure and we're going to enjoy one another and our souls are going to be touched. They are naked in front of each other And he says in verse 7, "You are altogether beautiful, my love. There is no flaw in you." Now, I want you to see something. I want us to go all the way back to Genesis chapter 2. Adam and Eve, when they were created in the garden, and the Bible says in Genesis 2:25, they were both naked and were not ashamed. After sin comes, guess what they do? It tells us in Genesis chapter 3, verse 7, that their eyes were opened, they saw that they were naked, and then they made clothes out of fig leaves to cover themselves. Now notice, what has sin caused them to do? Cover up. They're ashamed and they want to cover up. What does sex do inside of a marriage covenant? It undoes that. We can be naked in front of each other, not ashamed, because we are secure and we are safe. The vulnerability that comes with sex is met with exactly what it needs to be met with: tenderness, romance, security, safety. This is the way I wrote this. Sex is vulnerable because of the nakedness of the body. But when a couple is with each other in a godly way, they are romantic, reassuring, complimentary, and tender in such a way that they cover up that vulnerability with love. And it's a covenant love. I was listening last night. By the way, this was just by God's design. This wasn't planned. I ran last night after I got done running. I always turn on a podcast by Tim Keller, a sermon by Tim Keller. And the one that they uploaded last night was marriage. I was like, oh, this is fitting. Let's listen to it. As I'm listening to it, here's what he says about a marriage covenant. He says, when you say I do, you are not saying I love you right now. Yes, that's true, but anybody can say I love you right now. People that are dating can say that. When you say I do to a marriage covenant, you are promising future love. You're not just promising, I promise I'm not lying, I love you right now. In the episode of The Office when Ryan promises Kelly, he's like, I'm going to love you, and I'm going to love you tomorrow and the next week. But even if I don't, and I probably won't, but I will love you today. Like, that is the way that our world thinks. But marriage, listen, marriage is you saying, listen, yes, I love you today, but I am saying I do to loving you in the future every day. So when you come to the marriage bed, you come with this promise. You are lovely and there is no flaw in you. I'm going to love you right now, and I'm going to love you tomorrow, and I'm going to love you the next day, and I'm just going to keep telling you there's no flaw in you over and over and over again, and I'm going to cover up the vulnerability with love. The second thing that marriage is, or sex is unity. In verse 8, they are swept away in their passion. And Solomon says, come away with me. He wants to lead her into this future, away from the past. We're together now. We have been waiting, but now we are together. Come away with me into our passion. But the passion in their sex is not just sexual appetite. I mentioned that a while ago. It was about the goal of marriage, and the goal of marriage is for two people to become one. He's saying, come away. We're together now. Come away with me. Let's be one. Two lives become one. Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. A man should leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. A real union takes place. Solomon and his bride are becoming a family, something completely new and different than their relationship has ever been. Sex is about unity. It is about expressing your heart. It is about expressing your emotions. It is about expressing your body that this other person belongs to me and I belong to them and no one else. That's what Topanga said. And only for you. It is only for you. You are the one I have become one with and nobody else. Now, when a couple feels this, it's going to lead to more passion. Verse 9, you have captivated my heart, my sister, my bride. You have captivated my heart with one glance of your eyes and with one jewel of your necklace. How beautiful is your love, my sister, my bride. How much better is your love than wine, and the fragrance of your oils than spice. Your lips drip nectar, my bride. Honey and milk are under your tongue. The fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. In covenant, you will have passion. And this passion can never be excessive. Okay? Now, will you always have passion? Nope. You won't always have passion. But when you have passion inside of a godly marriage, it can never be excessive. Ever. Listen to me. This is so much better than what the world has to offer. This is so much better than what Satan has to offer. A man and a woman who have saved themselves for one another. Now they enter into this covenant promising to love each other every day for the rest of their future. They come together to be one. They're vulnerable, but their vulnerability is covered up in love. And this passion grows and they unite and the two become one flesh. A brand new family. Something completely new and different. Third, sex is holy. When sex becomes more than sex, and the only way that happens is inside of marriage. Listen to me carefully. Sex becomes more than sex inside of marriage. It becomes sacred and holy. Solomon was, he didn't have a degree, but Solomon would have been a botanist. Eden, what's a botanist? Studies what? Eden? Thank you. We studied this for 3.5 hours. Eden, what is a botanist? A scientist who studies plants. I don't know if it would go, Eden. Good job. I don't know if he had a degree, but you read the Ecclesiastes, this man was well acquainted with plants and flowers. He knew a little bit about this, and he compares her body to a garden, a perfect place that has never been discovered, that he is discovering for the first time. That's what he says in verses 12 through 15. The freedom of the marriage bed has been seen. Listen carefully, this is important. The freedom of the marriage bed has been seen by Jewish scholars as an analogy of entering the Holy of Holies in the temple. And here's what they mean by this. Meaning it is sacred, it is special, and it is unique. Her garden was not for everybody. Her sexuality was not for everybody. His body was not for everybody. It was for each other, and that's it. Our bodies sexually are set aside for a special use inside of marriage. Your body and its sexuality has been set aside for special use in marriage only. It is a gift. It is a gift from God. And it is meant to be traced up to God. I started off by saying this. Sex is good because God invented it. God invented sex. It is a good gift that he has given us. And we should praise God for every single gift that he has given us. We should worship God for the gift of sex. He designed it, and we should be thankful to him. We should glorify him for it. James 1:17, you have this in your notes. James 1:17, every good and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights. In verse 16, she basically says, bring it on, babe. Basically what she says. Awake, O north wind, come, O south wind, blow upon my garden, let its spices flow. Come on, baby. That's what she's saying. Let my beloved come to his garden and eat its choicest fruits. He says in verse 1 of chapter 5, I came to my garden, my sister, my bride, and I gathered my myrrh with my spices. I ate my honeycomb with my honey. I drank my wine with my milk. They have had sex. And then you have the second part of chapter 5, verse 1. Look at it together. Your Bible may say others as the title because it breaks it up like he's talking, she's talking, others are talking. You see where it says others, the last part of verse 5. Does all of yours say others?
Letters. So it has
N? Like narrator?
Oh, okay.
Probably.
Maybe.
Most Hebrew scholars think this is Yahweh talking. Okay? I tend to agree with them. I don't think this is her ladies. I don't think this is his men. I think this is God speaking. So let's step back and let's see what's happened. They've been attracted, they've dated, they've courted, they've married, and now they have consummated their marriage with sex. And how does God respond? What does God say to this? Eat, friends, drink, and be drunk with love. God doesn't think sex is gross. He doesn't think it's embarrassing. He doesn't think it is awkward. He invented it and he thinks it's good. It is something to be rejoiced over. And when it is done as God has intended for it to be done, you know what God says? Drink it up and enjoy it. Drink it up and enjoy it. I've given this gift to you. It accomplishes a lot of things. It makes babies. It brings two people and makes them one. It brings pleasure and passion. And God says, eat, drink, and be drunk with love. Now, we don't usually think of God like this. But that's because we have such a twisted view of sex, and so many people have a twisted view of God. And they think that God is up there just trying to squash all of our pleasure, to squash all of our enjoyment, and that is not the God of the Bible. He just wants you to do it the way he knows is best for you to do it. And he knows it'll destroy you, and it'll mess you up, and it'll hurt you, and it'll break you. And there will be a lot of healing that has to be done if you don't do it the way he says to do it. God thinks his creation of sex is good. And when it is in the parameters that he has laid out, a man and a woman are supposed to be drunk in love for each other sexually. Now, no one, listen carefully to this, no one in their right mind would want the counterfeit instead of this glorious, God-honoring real thing. When enjoyed as God intended, we can enjoy this gift without making it a God or making it gross. I'm going to end with this. There's only 3 options to viewing sex. Right? You either make sex a god with a lowercase g. You make it a god. You make it about everything is about sex. And I will sleep with people, and I will give myself to people, and I will pursue sexuality, and I'll do it outside of marriage, and I'll do it it just becomes nothing except self-gratification. It becomes a god. The other extreme is that it becomes gross. And we can be so afraid to talk about sex the way the Bible talks about sex that we think it's gross. And some churches would freak out that I'm talking to sixth graders the way we've talked tonight. They don't get it. They're thinking, well, you're going to mess this up for these kids. But I think you need to understand sex as God intended it is good. It's good as God intended it. So we're not going to make it a god. We're not going to make it gross. We're going to think about it the way that God tells us to think about it. And it's going to be good. The 3 G's of sex. God, gross, or good. We've got to choose how we're going to view it. We must steward it properly. We must glorify God with it.